Paris terrorist attacks, the Obama administration policy of allowing Syrian refugees to come into the United States has come under fire. Senator Santorum, you say accepting Syrian refugees is dangerous. You say it just takes one jihadist to destroy the world. Do you think there is any way to properly vet refugees coming into the United States?
Of course there's a proper way to vet refugees coming into the United States, but not from the ISIS-controlled area of Syria. How can you do a background check? Where are you going to go? Who are you going to call? You call Assad and say, hey, well, let's, tell me about this guy from Aleppo. There's no possibility in these types of war-torn countries to adequately vet someone to allow them to come into this country. It's impossible. So you have a physical impossibility here. Secondly, we shouldn't be taking out of that and moving them to the United States. And the reason we shouldn't is very clear. If you talk to the clerical leaders, particularly those who are religious minorities, they don't want their people to be relocated so they're never going to come back. And let me assure you, if they come to America, they're not going to come back. They're not going to go back to those areas. So who stays? Those who cooperated with ISIS, and maybe a few of the refugees who come back. We need to have refugee camps in the region. We need to provide no-fly zones to make sure that we don't even need refugees so people can stay. Last thing we need to do is to relocate moderate Muslims, relocate minorities and Christians out of the region so they're not going to return and reestablish a state that can be one that can be cooperative for us and safe going forward.
Governor Pataki, you have said you wouldn't accept a single Syrian refugee. What should become of them?
You know, I think what I said earlier is that I would create a no-fly zone in Syria. Turkey just agreed to take 3 million more Syrian refugees. The EU just came up with a funding program to provide camps for Syrian refugees. But I would also create that no-fly zone where refugees could be there. I agree with Rick. 1,000 people from Syria who we cannot vet. This administration allegedly vetted the woman who carried out the attacks in San Bernardino and never found out that she had a false address and was on social media talking about radical jihad. Coming from Syria, it's impossible to do that check. And we know, by the way, that ISIS is using this refugee program to send terrorists to the West to engage in attacks. They have said that this is an opportunity for them to do that. So the answer is no. No Syrian refugees, whether it's the 10,000 Obama wants or the 60,000 that Hillary Clinton wants. Think about it. I was governor on September 11th. Those attacks were carried out by only 18 people. We take 60,000 Syrian refugees that we can't vet. If 1 in 1,000 is a terrorist, we would have 60 terrorists living amongst us, looking to carry out attacks. We cannot let that happen.
Let's go back to Dana Bash and Hugh Hewitt for some more questions. Dana.
Governor Huckabee, the U.S. has a program that allows visitors from America's closest allies to travel to the U.S. without obtaining a visa. But new legislation in Congress says that privilege should not apply to those who have visited ISIS hotspots like Iraq and Syria in the last 5 years. You say that legislation doesn't go far enough. Why?
We just need to take a real pause in all the people that are coming here, and we don't know who they are, what their affiliations are. What George just said is right. We can't take the risk. And why should we take the risk? And if it's such a doggone good idea to bring people here that we really don't know who they are, and Obama thinks that we're being unchristian to not do it, I've got a suggestion. Let's send the first wave of them to Chappaqua, Martha's Vineyard, and the Upper East Side of Manhattan, and to the south lawn of the White House where we'll set up a camp. Let's out. They behave wonderfully, that's fine. I want to say I don't want someone lecturing me about what it means to be a Christian, that I should invite a potential terrorist into my backyard. On one hand, the left says separation of church and state, let's not have any discussion of religion, and then the left wants to tell me what it means to be a Christian. They need to figure out, if they know more about being a Christian than I do, then tell me that they are no longer going to say separation of church and state. But we have the most fundamental right, above everything else, is not to protect the reputation of Islam. It is to protect Americans first and foremost. That is our job.
Senator Graham.
Senator Graham, in 2013, you were part of the leadership to push through immigration reform, comprehensive immigration reform in the Senate of the United States. It died in the House. Many accused you of amnesty. It may have undermined your ability to get your message out on the war. Would you sign that bill again today? Would you sponsor that bill again today?
Well, the first thing I would do is make adjustments to reality. I want to look and see if this was a terrorist arranged marriage between the couple in California. I would have a timeout on Syrian refugees because you'd be crazy if you didn't after Paris. But I've been to the refugee camps in Turkey and Jordan. Trust me, whether you're a Christian, and I'm a lousy Christian saved by grace. But this is important. We've got to stop this war. Do you realize that there are more Syrian refugees in Lebanon going to school than Lebanese children? Do you realize if this war goes for another year, the king of Jordan could fall? Let's have a no-fly zone.
But Senator, I'm misunderstanding.
I would make changes to that bill in light of what I know today.
Senator Santorum, is that sufficient for you?
Lindsey says this is a real war until it comes to immigration. And then all of a sudden it's not such a real war. The reality is that we've seen since the events of 9/11, the president talks about how he's worried about discrimination against Muslims. There's as many acts of violence against Muslims, and I never hear the president talk about that. The reality is, under this president, since 9/11, this anti-Muslim United States of America has doubled the rate of Muslim immigration since 9/11. That's what we've done. So the idea that we have an immigration system that is working,
thank you, Senator,
is not. And
thank you, Senator.
I'm out of time.
Yep.
Okay.
Governor Huckabee, you have said that the children of immigrants who came here illegally should not be punished by their parents' actions. As president, would you continue President Obama's policy vis-a-vis the Dreamers?
No, because he did it unconstitutionally. 23 times he said he couldn't do it. He had a that Constitution can't just do what they want to do. That's the purpose of getting elected, and when working with other people who got elected, is that our system was designed to function with the power of persuasion. It's really what you elect a president to do.
Senator
You elect him to lead. Let me finish you. You elect him to lead, which means that if you think it's a good idea to not punish the children for something their parents did, then you go to the members of Congress and you persuade them, and you persuade the American people. You don't just jump up and do it and shove it up the nostrils of Congress and the American people because you think you have a superior intellect and a superior will and a superior theology than everybody else. Our system is not a system of tyranny. We don't elect kings, we elect servants. If I'm elected president, I don't consider myself to be elected to be the king of the country, but the servant of the country to work with other people who are elected to get things done that need to be done.
Senator Santorum, your position on that policy, assuming that it was passed constitutionally, would you allow this? Would you support such an effort?
Here's the problem. I mean, I was with, in fact, one of my guests here today is the sheriff from Cochise County down on the border in Arizona. And he talked with me last night when I was with him about all of the children coming across. All of the children. Why? Because we've created a magnet. These children are not coming over and in great shape, not coming over and not in harm's way and going through times. We're at the border. Almost everybody in this field, a policy that says amnesty. The world hears it and knows that if they can come across this border, by and large, they're going to be able to stay. That has to change.
Thank you, Senator. Gentlemen, stand by. We are going to take another very quick break. Coming up with America on Edge, who has what it takes to be the next commander-in-chief? These candidates, they will make their case.